Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 2 of Bevvies with the Boys. Can you believe it? I've been live on Twitch multiple days in a row. Nobody ever expected it, but it's actually happened. I'm going to real quick move the Twitch alerts because they're right over Veteran's face. So we'll put them down here so they're out of the way a little bit. And we'll ignore them for the rest of the night. All right, welcome, everybody. Come on in. Oh, God, what am I doing? I'm a professional.
Do you want me to do it for you?
No, it's all good, mate. It's all good. I got this. I'm Lunchables. This is Dagda. We are the boys, and we are joined by Medic and Veteran as we are going to have some bevies tonight. So, for anyone joining us that doesn't know who you two are, which is seemingly unlikely to me, but for the sake of ceremony, let's just do it anyway. Medic, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us what you're going to be drinking tonight?
I'm Medic. I'm a caster for the LEC. Also cast Worlds today, and I am drinking. Oh, wait. Do you want the actual name?
Yeah, sell it, mate. Sell it.
Di Montepulciano. Red wine. It's alcoholic. I got it from the nearest Audi, and it tastes okay. It's from Italy.
Nice.
I bought wine glass especially for the occasion. So here we are.
Yeah, I appreciate the dedication. I really do. Veteran, do you want to give yourself a little intro?
I'm Veteran. I discuss all things Europe, to do with League of Legends, of course, nothing else. And I am drinking the Redbreast 15. It's an Irish whiskey. I'm a massive fan of Irish whiskey, and it also has a robin on it. So for all of you who do know me, I am also being on brand today, and it tastes brilliant. So.
I was actually going to get whiskey for today, but I couldn't get it in time, so I'm very jealous right now.
I have a feeling
really
whiskey is going to be a favourite across, hopefully, the many episodes of this show.
So I actually travel a decent amount, so I had to store most of my whiskey at my girlfriend's mum's place, and that happens to be where I am spending the holidays, so it was actually perfect timing to go on this show.
I love that you have enough various whiskies that you need a place to store them while you travel.
This is going to be my point. I store my whiskey in my liver most of the time.
Yeah.
So I'm slightly confused.
I just finish a bottle and then buy a new one.
I have some pretty good whiskies here that I wasn't going to open. And then I thought that I hadn't opened this. And then when I popped it open, it turned out that it was already like halfway gone. So I guess I had a lot of this last Christmas or something. So, all right. I didn't spoil anything just for the show.
You had enough of it to not remember having it, which is always
true.
Dagda, what are you drinking tonight, mate?
So the thing was, I had a bottle of Tesco's Finest vodka that I thought maybe I should open right away.
You can't do that
Smart
while I'm
price.
drinking.
Beer Moretti instead, just to keep it classy.
All right, nice. So I myself have gone with, I don't know what this is. I found it in the co-op. It's called Moyo Juice, which is some kind of tropical pale ale. So I have no idea if it's any good. We're going to find out.
I do like a well-flavored pale ale.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if it's any good. It tastes exactly like every single tropical pale ale. So
Beautiful.
But
so
do
that's
you
where
like
we're at.
tropical pale ale?
I like most alcohol, to be honest, because I'm a degenerate.
Perfect. It wins. There you go.
So let's talk about League of Legends a little bit, gentlemen, because I don't know if you guys know this, but there's actually been a tournament going on over in China at the minute. It's called Worlds, and NA have not done so hot. And I have to ask you, I'm just going to start with the flame here. Like, where
I might be leaving the conversation.
What were the
early,
expectations?
guys.
What were the
I'll let
expectations?
you guys discuss this one very quickly.
I just want to ask, like, what your guys' expectations were coming in, because I'm not just trying to put you in the hot seat here. I actually put TSM in second on my pick'ems coming out of that group. And TSM are
Really?
by far the worst of the NA teams based on this week. So I have completely misread this one. So I want to ask what your guys' expectations of the teams were coming in versus the reality of the situation. Do you want to go first, Baron?
Well, first I want to commend you for being such a talented host and your decision to open with the NA topic rather than wait until we had a few drinks to then ask.
Thank God.
Well, I figured this way that people don't dig their own graves,
True.
Nice.
As Europeans, can we really be flaming them? We're literally the only region giving them wins right now. So even the Machi were able to not do that. But I never really have high expectations of North America. I don't really think that they have, on the systemic level, the ability to produce teams that can compete with other regions and worlds. So even if I don't watch much of the region, I'm fairly confident not rating them very highly anyway. There's a lot of things that fundamentally have to change in North America before things shift. Otherwise, just watching them play at this world is quite clear that they don't understand really basic concepts in terms of lane matchups, in terms of how to synchronize lanes with jungle, in terms of how to play around jungle at all in early game. I have no idea who's actually in control of their early games there. You could always tell from Korea when Korea was dominant that the jungle was the majority of where the comms were occurring. You could tell that Perks was leading G2 when G2 was in its prime. You could tell a lot of these things because there was actually some semblance of a game plan rather than just people doing stuff. Whereas it doesn't look like they even have a concept of what they want to be doing early on. It's just kind of people doing things and not even doing them well, because there are lane matchups they should be winning that they don't win, and nothing ends up working out. So obviously they're good enough to beat us. So what the fuck can we say? But that's my overall impression of North America right now, and it will always be my impression until something dramatic changes in that region. It's one of those places in esports where you can say maybe things are too far fucked and we just need to like reset everything. There's no realistic suggestions that anyone can give right now that would just immediately make them competitive at Worlds next year, for example. Any discussion of how to improve North America has to be a long-term discussion, right?
So you with TL getting out of groups.
So I am curious.
I'm surprised they got a win.
I am curious what you guys think of Veterans' take as well. Whether you guys had any expectations, because as you could tell, I boarded the hype train a little bit at least, and thought maybe one team could make it out. Did you guys board the hype train at all, or was this destined to fail?
Do you want to go first, Dagda?
Yeah, I'm going to be a little bit chirpier. I thought, at least with the way the meta was shifting and how we were kind of looking at more tanks top lane and stuff like that, I thought TL would have been doing pretty okay. And I think Core JJ is still good, and I think Tactical has shown that he is actually quite good as an AD carry when he's given the setup that he needs. But I thought they'd be able to at least put up a pretty decent performance, so I'm kind of surprised at where they've gone to, but certainly I can kind of see the differences there, although I still thought that G2 and stuff, I was kind of looking at going, maybe these guys aren't as strong as they used to be, but I mean, it's world buff for them, so they came in swinging.
Yeah, I think the issue with me saying I agree with Veteran is Veteran's take was quite
aggressive,
extreme,
which is very surprising. Nobody would have expected that.
We'll never have an extreme take on something. I understand the concept behind it, and I think coming into this world, my expectation was that no NA team would get out of groups. The team I thought was most likely to surprise was Team Liquid, mostly because they seem to have a better grasp on the fundamentals is a weird word, but they seem to have a better grasp on being able to not lose until they get to their point of power. Like as a team, they tended to play more around team fighting. They have more cohesion when it comes to full 5v5s. And so I trusted them a little bit more to be able to play to that win condition. And I think we saw it a lot in play-ins, like against teams that couldn't punish the early mistakes that they regularly make. Team Liquid are very good at saying, okay, we'll get to 5v5 and then we'll beat you, right? Against teams that do punish their early mistakes, they struggle, right? And part of that is a lack of understanding on the fundamentals. As Veteran said, they lose winning matchups. And even when they win winning matchups, they then don't translate that victory into other parts of the map, right? So I think Team Liquid do seem to lag behind on a general understanding of how League of Legends is played at the moment, which is a very loose concept. But their inability to transfer pressure from mid or top lane into a jungle invade, or their inability to gain vision prio with their jungler and support teaming up, is one of their key weaknesses in my opinion. So I'm not surprised by where NA are. I think Team Solar Mid have looked a lot weaker than I expected them to, and Bjergsen especially in my opinion has looked a shadow of his former self. Like first game on Syndra, he had one good play and then was invisible. Second game on Zilean, it's like this guy is 23-7 on the pick, and then really showed me no reason that he should ever be 23-7 on the pick. And then who did they play against today? I cast that game, didn't I?
It was LeBlanc, I think.
Yeah, the LeBlanc. Oh man, like
against LGD.
It was so difficult not to just flame him in the cast because like there was a point where he jumps over the wall, has a perfect flank position, and misses every single ability.
Oh,
and it's
yeah.
just like, mate, come on,
And
like
when they dive top lane as well early in the game,
like, it was like I wanted to see more and I hope to see more, but my expectation was that North America would continue the downward trend that we saw probably I'm going to say starting in 2018, like where Liquid went 3-3, 100 Thieves went 2-4, and C9 did get out of groups. But then 2019 we had the first 6-0 from a major region where Clutch didn't win a single game, and now I wouldn't be surprised if we see the second when TSM don't win a single game. So.
I mean, like on that last point as well, like obviously the LeBlanc missing the double chains is pretty funny and all, but even if she hadn't done that, that game was pretty doomed anyway. All three lanes lost
like,
lane. It was nothing 100%. To do with jungle interaction at all. They were just the worst individual players, and there aren't many regions we can say that about that aren't complete wildcard regions where we'd expect the average person there to be like Diamond 1 on a major server, right?
I will say I think like there is a degree of there is a huge amount of pressure on these guys. And so like, yes, you can play better than this. And yes, you can show up better. And I mean, there's a huge amount of pressure on the LPL teams as well. But if an LPL team only makes quarterfinals, like, yes, there'll be a little bit of hate towards them, but generally the region's doing very well. Whereas every one of these guys for North America, these 15 players, is carrying the entire weight of a region on their shoulders. And if they fail and if they flame out, they are going to feel that for not only next year, but probably for a few years to come.
I think that was incredibly visible in specifically Bjergsen's play as well. Like some of the plays that he was making, outside of just missing skill shots, but like, for example, the tower dive that we mentioned before, where he tries to dive top lane, that was at best like a 50-50 play anyway, even if he hits the skills, right? That's not like a solid planned out play that you expect to see from TSM, which generally speaking, we've seen to be a fairly calculated team that they're not one of these crazy teams like you expect from the LPL or from like G2, for example. And it did feel like some of the plays he was trying to make were like, hey, I've got to win this for my team right now or we're going to lose. Like, That's have exactly to individually get this team out of groups or we're just going to be the NA meme forever.
If you look at it, like in the moment, you see them back away, you see the teleport invested by LGD and you're like, in my head, I'm like, grand. Like, they got the TP. That's amazing. Like, good job. You can play around that. That's 5.5 minute cooldown. Great. And then you see Bjergsen double jump in. It's like, the actual hell are you
Wait
doing?
a second.
Like, this is just, someone's there. You saw the TP. So, yeah. And I also think some of the players that perhaps would have performed in previous years, I mean, Broxer, there's debate as to how good he was when he was on Fnatic, but he has looked weak on Team Liquid this year, especially. Impact as well. Like, Impact has been found out. He plays 3 champions, and the weird thing is, when those 3 champions were banned against him, Team Liquid then won the game, right? But that's more G2 being an absolute clusterfuck today than anything else. But like, I think a lot of the players from NA teams are less great than they used to be.
I mean, I will say on the Impact side of things, because I think it was Dag that brought up the point that he thought that they should, that because the meta is shifting more towards tank tops, that might benefit them. I actually think the only times that I've seen Team Liquid be a dominant threat have been when Impact's being on carry champions and as being able to play out those side lane scenarios. So I actually think this might not benefit them so much and might be part of the reason why they would drop to, for example, like Matchy, right? If it was more of a carry-oriented meta, I think that would favor him because at the very least it would prevent the enemy from having really easy, hard engage around midsection while he's trying to do something on the side lane. Well, I want to clarify on my jungle point because, for example, you brought up that they don't do jungle support very well, which is true. They don't transfer pressure into invades, which is true. But I think it's on a, I wouldn't say deeper level. I think it's on like a simpler level than that. Like these guys don't synchronize waves with where the jungle is about to be pathing to, right? So say that all the jungle camps are on bot side, they might be spawning top side, but they're all on bot side right now, and jungle's on reset. Well, top lane is now suddenly going to break his slow push and just try to crash his wave anyway, even though you know for a fact your jungle is going to be bot side only, so you're just making yourself vulnerable to ganks. And this is why NA players are very, very vulnerable to ganks, particularly NA top lane. Like, they're very bad about playing their waves based on how their jungler's going to path on a much simpler level than I should push because my jungler wants to invade. Like, they will make themselves vulnerable when their jungler isn't even on the same side. Really basic stuff everyone else figured out in Season 6.
I think Solo was the biggest proponent of that as well. I saw that a lot from his play, where he just randomly shove a wave and you're just leaving yourself so overexposed.
Mm.
So I think there's a lot of that, but also the biggest surprise for me was especially the TSN LGD game, like the bottom lane for Biofrost and Doublelift. Like people have been touting, oh yeah, Doublelift come back to Worlds, he's a legend in NA, and I just looked like Kramer and Mark are not a bottom lane that ever gets duo kills. Like they're just not an aggressive lane, and the fact that they're giving over duo lane kills in that scenario is just like, what in the hell is going on in that team?
Like,
yeah,
you really
I mean, there was.
sorry.
Sorry, you go.
Like Doublelift Flash is level 1, and we talked about it in the cast. It's like they're expecting to get 2 first, but at some point you just count the minions, right? Like it's not that hard to be like, I'm Ezreal, can I auto attack this minion before a Senna can auto attack the minion on the other side? It's like no. And then after that, you're like, okay, I burnt Flash level 1. What should I do? Should I back away and make sure I can get my E up before I then step forward again? No, I'll just stand between. Like Mark it's a nice hook, right? Like it slides just by the minions. It's well placed, but just stand behind a bloody minion. Like it's frustrating because I want North America to be better, and I think they're just struggling at the moment. And I think they are like PCS 1. Like I think NA Team 1 is PCS 1 level. And that's just where they are right now. And we have to kind of recalibrate our expectations for this region. And I don't think it's not a bad thing to have to do. It's just a disappointing thing to have to do.
I think it's an important thing to mention as well that like it is ultimately in the long term a positive thing to reduce your expectations for NA, because currently it feels like they're coming in with like the general public having an expectation that NA should be performing the same as EU, right? That seems to still somehow be the expectation coming into the World Championship. And then every single year, everybody's incredibly disappointed that NA didn't show up. But if it's a consistent factor every single time, maybe the expectation shouldn't be that they do show up. Maybe we should lower that expectation. And then when like the Spring Cloud9 finally doesn't get robbed of an MSI because of COVID, for example, and actually gets to play an international tournament, that is the underdog story that it deserves to be and that it should be praised as, because like the old Cloud9 with High and everything performing on the world stage is a long and distant history at this point. So I think if you allow this, like if you allow the expectation to be lower, then it means that the true story can be told when it comes to finally an NA.
That's true.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think C9 has kind of inflated the idea of where NA should place. Like they're the only team to consistently get out of groups. TSM, they got out of groups in 2014 because they were auto-seeded out, or 2012 because they were auto-seeded out, and 2014 because they managed to get second place in their group or something. Because they lost to Samsung Galaxy in quarterfinals. But apart from that, NA teams just don't make it out of groups. And I really feel C9 collapsing has cost them a lot as a region this year. Because if C9 was at this world stage, at the performance they were doing, mid-summer, I would be a lot more confident on NA seed making it out of groups. But because they collapsed and because FlyQuest rose up, and FlyQuest, they're a good team, they're not a great team. TSM, they're a good team, they're not a great team. Team Liquid possibly could be a great team, but like tier 2. They're just, you don't have that best of one explosivity that you would have with a C9, right?
Just think about like if C9 in spring playoffs replaces current TSM in Group C, I could easily see that Cloud9 making it out of that group. Like that's very possible in my mind. But let's stop talking about hypotheticals from NA. Let's move on with the conversation. I want to talk groups then and like have a bit of a recap of what on earth has happened, because I was going to say it's been a bit crazy. To be honest, there's been less crazy results than usual, I would say, in the group stage. I feel like there's a lot of favorites that have just been the favorites, like Damwon, JDG, Top Esports, all looking fantastic. DRX
Fnatic
looking pretty
really good. G2 amazing.
Well, G2, I don't know. That loss today did not look good for them. But let's start with G2 then and Group A, because G2, Suning both 2-1, Liquid and Machi both 1-2. I feel like this is relatively what you could have expected. I would have expected maybe Machi to go 0-3, maybe Liquid to go 0-3, and between Suning and G2, I expected one of them to go 3-0. I didn't expect it to be as close as it is.
I mean, it's close because of an upset, right? Like G2 shouldn't realistically have lost today. A lot of their flaws from the other games and even from their time in Europe were kind of exposed today. But I wouldn't necessarily say that give a BO5 to G2 versus Team Liquid and there's a chance that G2 would drop the BO5, right? I think G2, in my head, kind of are Frio here, but this does put them in a position where I could see them maybe not getting first, because their match versus Suning was pretty close. But while their match v Suning was pretty close, I do have to say, because Wonder was like making the statement that he thinks Suning might be the best LPL team, right? And maybe you two can help me out with this because you two have been casting the region for a while. But it's my understanding that 4 of them literally got their one tricks, right? That 4 of them
I am
were literally
Suning's
given
biggest
their one
fan
tricks
in the entire world.
Yeah, you're Suning's biggest fan.
Are not the best team in the LPL.
Yeah, like, was this not pretty much as comfortable a composition as you could have given Suning's players? Like, 4 of them basically got their best champions straight up, and then G2 opted to play into that, and then still beat them anyway, which made me much more confident about G2 going forward. And then G2 decided, these guys must be faker on steroids just because they kind of gave them everything in draft phase that they would possibly want, you know? If they go in not trolling next draft phase, I could see them very easily beating Suning and then going out. But then there's always been this kind of like tendency from G2 to want to give their opponents their strongest thing in Europe, and they've even talked about this openly in interviews. I'm not sure here is the place you want to do this if you are going to then lose to a team like Team Liquid, right? Overall, the issue of G2 right now is I really don't think Jankos is even vaguely on form. He's making a very frequent first clear decision where if he knows he's being invaded on one side of the map, he's no longer trading specifically on his dominant side of the map and then playing away from that. He's opting into contest even if he isn't contesting into an area of lane strength. Yeah, and he's done this
every time.
Yeah, or he gets forced off and then is on a massive delay for the rest of the game, and it's really insane. If you're going to play a champion like Nidalee,
why? Apparently the stream is lagging.
I think I fixed it. I think it's good again.
That's on Munchables, not me. Alright, that's on Munchables.
Words a minute, we're just accelerating.
My poor laptop. I've tried to stream with it all the time, but it is struggling.
I'm flaming jungle systems. All right, Munch, you keep the stream alive, all right?
But
Jankos keeps doing this. He keeps doing this in multiple games in a row, and at the same time, G2 are no longer playing as volatile, I guess we could say, as beforehand. Their laners are no longer getting the significant advantages that they were before. Again, they gave Suning like their best composition possible. Maybe the rest of the world is just catching up with them in laning expertise, but as a result, there are less both guys are on 200 HP scenarios that Jankos used to abuse very well because he was one of the best reactive junglers we've ever seen in the region, right? G2 could always go for somewhat int trades in lane, and Jankos would be the jungler that would go in and capitalize on it, right? Rather than the enemy jungler. That was one of his biggest advantages in Europe for a while. That's not happening this Worlds. And at the same time, his jungle pathing relative to his matchup and relative to his lane strengths is not actually that strong. Yeah. So their early game, we could say it was weak last year. It's being abused this year, and it's causing them to have to play from a position where you'll see Caps make like Bjergsen-like calls, like versus Team Liquid, where he just went all in ham on the top side, right? There are scenarios where if he didn't play that quite so desperately, he probably does just turn the game there. But it looked like desperation, right? I'm probably not the only one who thought it looked like desperation.
No, it definitely did.
Yeah, and it's coming from these poor early games that are a result of a poor jungle system that hasn't necessarily been abused up to now, though it was costing them games in Europe, and is now being abused versus a lot of teams. Like, at the very least, they're going to go against Suning again. Please don't give them as much comfort, because you guys have a lot to work on right now.
So I just want to kind of go back on the whole comfort thing. So I feel like there is some champions that are definitely comfort for them, but I don't think it's the champions. It's more the style that Suning likes to play, because they do like being on an aggressive top laner, so the Renekton just fits. And they want something where you can just have Huanfeng sit by himself in bot side and have Sword Art roam. And I felt like G2 actually had a composition that played pretty well against what Suning wanted to do, because with Caps on the Twisted Fate, you can actually get out and move about. And the whole way that Suning played the early game is, okay, let's group SOFM and Sword Art together. Let's go 3-man top with Bin, and we can actually start bin rolling and just let Angel and Huanfeng do their thing and farm up. So I think G2 actually had an answer for what they're trying to do, but as you said, like Jankos in the jungle, going in for those invades early, getting caught out, giving over these early kills, which they could then snowball with, was a big issue. But I think that game was pretty heavy Suning favored, and I feel like the only thing that really coin flipped it for G2 was them stealing that Ocean Soul. Like I felt like that was the point of the game where they actually kind of stalled out enough where okay, now Suning they're starting to run out of steam. You've got G2 are able to now start to bring it back into their favor. And I think if that Ocean Soul had gone over towards Suning earlier, I think that's a very different game.
Yeah, wait, I'm just making sure I recall properly. They stole Dragon 4, right? And then Suning got 5.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I give a hot take on the whole Drake topic, actually? I actually feel like Soul is a bit of an illusion right now. The Soul that I am the most afraid of is Cloud Soul now. And I think the rest of it... Yeah.
What?
And yes, because it's the only one that can't be countered by atomization of any form.
Okay, so I understand.
And MS
I understand
is actually
that, but
massive.
Ocean Soul is actually giga broken, and if
because
did not have Ezreal, they lose that game.
One execution is calling on a Renekton. One execution is calling on like a Renekton or a Graves, for example, and you diminish the effects of Ocean Soul in the vast majority of the team. So then, what has the enemy effectively done by going for all of these Drakes? They've seeded two things. 1, map tempo, and 2, economy, and economy can counter this kind of a Drake, right? Which is why we have seen, for example, G2 not actually win on Ocean Soul ever. Until very recently, not actually win on Ocean Soul ever, right? It's actually not one of the best souls that you can have in the game because it can be so easily countered. Not with Morello, but with executions calling on a variety of champions that are meta right now. Hecarim is another one, right? So the one that I'm actually afraid of is the Cloud Soul. MS buffs are actually, this is really interesting, the only buffs that always guarantee a spike in win percentages. They are the only buffs that do that. The Caitlyn buff recently of 5 MS is insane, and that's because the way you have to think about MS buffs is you effectively add range to a champion over time. If I tell you that Darius is a 5 MS buff, you don't care. If I tell you that Darius's Q now has 25 more range every 5 seconds that he's in combat with you, now you fucking care about it, right? And there's no way to get around that when it comes to the Cloud Soul specifically.
Frozen Mallet.
In shadow.
Yes, all the champions that build Frozen Mallet, my man. You are completely correct. We'll just start spamming them right now. Cogmore, because he can go Rylai's, counters it. Perfect, Munch. You've made Malzahar meta again. Brilliant. But you can see the issue, right? These are much higher economy things that you have to buy rather than the items to counter the other souls. And with those Drakes, in going for those Drakes, you give up map tempo and you give up economy, and that's what counters it anyway. And then Elder is now appeared. The enemy potentially is able to counter your soul, and the enemy can now go for Elder Dragon. Yeah, you can see where it ends up going now. Like I actually think souls are a little bit of an overrated thing. So, I do think that was a pretty good thing for them to steal and deny them in that game particularly. Yeah, but only because that game was so close.
I agree with you. Like fundamentally, I can get where you're coming from. In this specific example, I do think Ocean Soul would have been pretty nice for Suning, and I do think it could have won them the game. Like, so, regardless of how much you like Cloud Soul.
Am I okay to push this point, Munch?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, go for it.
So I understand what you're saying. Grievous wounds, great, excellent. You reduce healing, right? Reduces it by 40%. Amazing.
And it only costs 4,000 gold across the team.
Well, it costs 400 gold per champion.
You only need 100
gold per champion, but you only need 1, right? Cool.
Yeah, in a competitive game.
Amazing.
So
right? However, Ocean Soul isn't just healing. It's fucking tons of healing. Like, it's 160 heal plus 0.36 bonus AD plus 0.22 bonus AP plus 9% bonus health, and it restores mana. Like, the idea that this Ocean Soul is not a win condition seems so strange to me because, yeah, sure, reduce it by 40%, reduce it by 40%. If I am that means I'm getting 100, it means I'm getting 100 heal with no bonus AD, no bonus AP, no bonus health over 4 seconds, and I'm getting 80 extra mana. If I hit a minion, I still get 30 heal and whatever 30% of 80 mana is. Do the maths. 24 mana. Like,
yeah, but you can't do the maths.
Strong.
Okay.
I did the maths. Thank you. Okay. Amazing.
But you can't do the maths when it comes to the map tempo and the economy that you potentially give up every time, right? Which is why I brought up those 2 points as well. You're acting as if I'm saying Ocean Soul isn't necessarily a win condition. Ocean Soul is a win condition you trade for other win conditions in the game.
Ocean Soul is a win condition. Like the issue with it is like my problem with saying you can't play around Ocean Soul as a you shouldn't play around a soul as a win condition because you don't know what the soul is going to be anyway, right? Like you can play like when you set up the game, you don't know what the soul is going to be. However, if I stack early dragons, like say I get whatever, I know it's cloud first, then I get mountain, I can then look at the next the soul and be like, okay, that's my win condition now. And yes, you give up some early pressure on the map, right? Maybe you give up a Rift Herald and 3 plates top, right? I've given up 480 effective gold, right? If they use the Rift Herald top. You can make those trades, but also if you're a good team, right? I'm using bottom mid pressure to translate into a dragon, right? The enemy jungler is now top lane. I can pressure bot lane, right? I have my jungler down on that side of the map, right? You don't taking a dragon in itself is not an isolated incident, right? Because yes, I'm giving up pressure on the other side of the map, but if I have push prio in the bot lane because I drafted like Ash Karma or Ash Nautilus or whatever, right? I then translate that into more pressure down towards the bottom lane. Like I understand the idea that you shouldn't say you can get a soul in isolation, right? Because 100% I agree with you. You give up things to take dragons, right? It's League of Legends. You give up things to get anything, but taking a dragon isn't something where I can't also get something more on top of that. I don't have to give up everything, every lane to make sure I get a dragon.
You don't have to give up every lane, but you will give up tempo no matter what. Unless the enemy team completely runs it down, you will be at a man disadvantage if you are trying to maintain tempo on them and at the same time you're trying to take Drake. Yes. They will maintain man advantage of you. You'll have to get that up. So then you give up resets and you give up wave states. Now you're in a position where LS is jerking off because his lanes can suddenly freeze and the enemy teams can't freeze, right? You will give that up every time. It's not as simple as, oh, well, I can actually still pay attention to a wave or maybe even 2 waves while my jungler is taking it. You aren't able to do that just because you have a player in there. If they know that you are now at a jungle disadvantage, they can pressure you off that, and you have to pressure yourself off that anyway. You're not going to be able to get the same bounce as the enemy team's going to be able to. So you are giving up not just potentially turrets, which are a win condition not just because of gold, but because of, for example, mid turret is going to change completely the state of the map, or the kind of bounces that you can get if you take tier 2 on top side are completely different to the kind of bounces you can get if you take tier 1 on top side. But you're also giving up the initial resets. So the way that you're going to be able to fix those are now going to have to come down to much more of a coin flip play than they were going to have to beforehand. And you're giving up long-term economy, and long-term economy mitigates the win condition you are getting right now. The win condition you're getting right now does not necessarily mitigate the win condition the opponent is getting, because it will rely on an opponent mistake occurring for you to get the optimal fight scenario for which you can make use of said soul, right? So and then once you get that, they will have economy to mitigate the soul itself.
I mean, that's the reason we see people give up 2 dragons and then fight 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, right? Like, I can understand where you're coming from. It's the
which I don't always
strategy.
Agree with.
Yeah,
which I don't always
also
agree
understand
with.
That, right? Like, I think the important thing here is, like, although it sounds like we're arguing, we agree on the majority of the points that we're discussing, right? Like, at the end, it's context. Well, we do, like, because, like, it well, okay, maybe you don't agree with me, but I agree with you, so it's a weird dichotomy that we have.
I mean, like, I'm not talking about like giving up individual drakes. I'm saying that, like, because we're talking about Ocean Soul specifically, I actually do think you can give up Ocean Soul in a lot of circumstances if you just have to drop 800
Okay, then we disagree. You're fucking wrong. You're fucking wrong. Like, the problem with giving up Ocean Soul...
It only costs 800 gold. Right. It only costs 800 gold to
I'm gonna derail this conversation now.
You still have 60%
Gentlemen,
fucking soul.
You're halfway through one bit. You're halfway through one bit.
We fight for every dragon. Every dragon is a fight.
Every dragon deserves a fight.
Yeah. Every scuttle crab, every dragon, every whatever the hell it's called, whatever cap spawn.
At the end of the day, it's all gameplay context dependent. Right? So, like, and maybe there are times you can give up an Ocean Soul. I just don't think you can ubiquitously give it up and say it's fine. We've got Grievous Wounds.
Yeah, there are times you obviously can't give it up. Like, if you're fucking 5k behind in gold and the enemy gets Ocean Soul, then you're never getting back into the game, obviously, right? Okay. So that's a completely different scenario to
Let's close this conversation. I want to talk about groups again. Just for anyone that missed that whole conversation, Medic likes Dragon, Veteran doesn't like Dragon. And that is all that is said. So let's talk. We talked a little bit about Group A. So let's just put a cap on the Group A conversation because we
were talking about Group A.
I don't know, because we were talking about the dragon that got stolen in the G2 shooting game. So and let's kind of look at this from a bit more zoomed out than like the super nitty gritty of every single game that was played, because we're going to be all night if we do that for every group. So I'll go to you next, Dagda, because you've not spoken that much recently. Give me your like top down view of this group after the first 3 games for each team.
Which are we on Group B
Group
now?
A
Or
still, yeah. We'll
Group A?
conclude Group A and then we'll move on to.
Okay. I think Suning are the strongest looking in this group right now. I know maybe the lads disagree, but I think definitely the prep that Suning have come in with is definitely shining through. Where even you saw against Team Liquid, they're happy to leave open like Twitch for Khan and stuff like that, and they've got an answer with Wanfeng's Draven. I thought that was really cool to see. I think G2, their early game is still a little bit shoddy and can be exploited. And then I was kind of surprised by TL. We kind of went through why they're not looking so hot. So definitely, I think it could be Matchy Esports coming in third, and then TL going into that fourth place spot. Especially with Mission, I think Mission's really impressed me from Matchy. I think he's a solid mid laner, and if he can get the ball rolling for himself, I think Matchy have the ability to take that third place spot.
I really liked when he died at level 6 today, 1v1 against Angel. That was particularly impressive.
He got outplayed, man. He got hard outplayed.
He just forgot Syndra has an E. That was the significant issue there. So Dagda, just repeat your final order then. Your final pick'ems for Group A.
G2, Matchy, Team Liquid.
Okay. What do
I
you?
can tell where the divide on the show is going to be, by the way. On this,
It's down the middle, mate. It's down.
Yeah,
the
it
middle.
is exactly down the middle. I'll go last, just for the sake of argument. So, Medic, do you want to? We'll go in clockwise then. Medic, do you want to give us your thoughts?
I'm gonna stick with what my pick'em said, which is G2 Suning, Team Liquid Matchy. I think Matchy are a good team, but I think Team Liquid will come back and beat them. And in all honesty, I think that 3-4 can go either way. But G2 had a happy accident today. No, it doesn't. We don't play a tiebreaker if they tie, so that means it doesn't matter.
Exactly. Veteran?
I agree on the TL Machi point more than I do on the G2 Suning one, just because, I mean, they have the habit of, again, giving their opponents their strongest comps, as Dagda was saying. And obviously they do their best to counter it. I just do think Suning are a completely different team if they don't get said composition anyway. And I prefer that they would deny it. And then after the draft that they threw at Team Liquid, which, in fairness, they do have winning lanes. But obviously it's a much easier draft for Team Liquid to execute if, you start getting desperate like Capsid on top lane. Basically, I'd be betting against Grabs is the Twitter meme, but I'd be betting against their drafts if I said... I'll just say G2 Suning, and if I'm wrong, it's because they ran down draft, and that's why.
I mean, I agree with that strategy.
So that's the thing for Suning is, like, even though they got, like, comfort champs, there's other ones that are still in there. Like, the Zoe can still be played mid. There's a lot there for Angel. Wanfeng has got a heap of champions that he's able to play in the side of the map as well. And I mean, we've even saw Bin as well, bringing in stuff like the Jackson as well, which are working really well. So I don't think it's like, oh, we just get rid of some of these champions. Like Sword Art is an incredible bard too. Like I would have loved to see him get it in that game, but obviously he was taken by G2. So I don't know. I think there's still enough there for Suning that it's not as simple as like, we just ban away like 3 of the champions that were in that draft. We're all good. I think there's a lot more to it.
Yeah, I think so I'll finish off and then we'll move on to Group B here. I'm going to go also Suning, G2, Team Liquid, Matchy. Although, just to spice things up, I actually do think there's a universe where Team Liquid could actually beat out G2 because honestly,
beat out Suning, you said.
I just saw a veteran go.
I just want to something that everyone is
more.
very conveniently forgotten is that like Team Liquid just looked better than G2 in that win. Like G2 really looked like a bit of a shambles, honestly, and especially Perks in the bottom lane has been really struggling. Jankos has been really struggling. Like the team is not doing a very good job of playing around Jankos at all. Team Liquid, even if I just look at Team Liquid in isolation over their games, have got better with each game. G2 have got worse with each game. If that trend continues...
Can I put my hand up?
It's some maths here.
Yeah.
Do you want to know why it happened, Munch? Do you want to know why it happened? G2, when they think their opponents are good, try hard. When they do not think their opponents are that good, they don't try that hard.
I'm not buying into the meme.
I'm not saying it's a good strategy. I'm saying
saying it's not a strategy right now because when you look at the player cams when they're in a best of 5 against Fnatic and they know that they've got it, right?
Did you watch the game?
No, let me talk. When you watch the player cams when they're playing against Fnatic, right?
My God.
They are laughing during the losses. They go 2-0 down and they're giggling to themselves. When you watch them lose to Team Liquid,
Caps laughed after the ace. Caps was laughing after the ace.
One person let out a giggle. Majoritively, they looked like their whole family had just died. Like, it was not a good look. They do not look like they were having fun. They do not look like the jovial G2 that you see in all the voice comms videos. They look like a team that is actually going through real struggles, and I don't think that we should downplay this as, it's just G2, guys, it's all just a meme, because this did not look like the meme losses that we've seen in the past from G2.
Okay.
I mean, I will say Jankos showed the same issues that he has showed versus other teams, right? They were just exploited in other ways, and then they are showing the same issue with their jungle systems. And I never know whether to just blame Jankos specifically, because jungle, it's weird to say this because I don't say this about draft, but with jungle, it is kind of a team thing. Though you do sometimes have junglers that are just not vocal whatsoever and just refuse to be vocal at all. But everyone has to play within the jungle system itself. It's not as simple as like better jungler will always win, because if you have the worst laners, then you could be parving from bot to top and your top laner gets solo killed at level 2, and then you're like, why the fuck did we even import Broken Blade? And then you're just like, fuck the rest of the game, you're just fucked the rest of the game. Like it is a two-way thing. And there have to be conversations going on with the team as a whole about how they want to play their whole early game system, and modeling it as a jungle-based system is just kind of better in general. Like, maybe there is a thing that they're talking about where Jankos just has to contest that blue buff that Pantheon is going in to back up his boy on as fucking Nidalee when he has no hope of backup. Maybe there's some logic on the team there, and it's not just entirely Jankos, but I have to say that. And also, just the last point, and then we could just move on to the next group. I just want to congratulate my boy Civ HD, repping Europe out there and beating Team Liquid. My man, thank you so much.
All
right,
Sports, the 6th European seed at Worlds.
Yes.
I thought they were the 7th.
Brushy, detective
we forget about the ones that are out.
Is on the case.
You got to do it in the back of the
brushy. Solid tactic. Right.
It is a solid tactic. You can't really argue with that.
Mm-hmm. Detective Ash is still on the case.
So I think just to round it out, like, yes, there were some warning signs for G2, but I have seen these warning signs before, and one bad game does not shake my confidence in this team. Like, I still think they will turn it on. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they've collapsed. Maybe they die.Maybe they're actually bad again. But I've seen them be bad, and then I've seen them immediately be really good. Mm-hmm. And I still have trust in them to be good.
See summer playoffs against Fnatic.
I agree with Medic.
Fair enough.
Unless they end up in a best of 5 against an LPL team, in which case
they will lose
panic.
3 out, obviously.
As tradition says.
As it is written in the scripture.
So our conclusion here is G2 live and die by exactly what the memes are. So we'll have to see. We shall see what the memes have in store for them. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about Group B. Group B is pretty cut and dry, honestly, in my opinion. I'm sure that you guys probably share the same opinion. Damwon are just better. They're just really good players. It's just like, hey, I'm better than you, so unlucky.
That's pretty much it, right?
I mean, do you guys want to add to that? Like, that is pretty much my read on Damwon. I don't know if anyone else... Like, obviously there's more to it, but like, even just we just have 3 winning lanes feels like a lot of the way that Damwon wins a game.
They're so clean.
It's all... I always loved Canyon the most on that team. I'm not gonna lie. Like, Canyon always impressed me the most on that team, because there are ways to play the game less efficiently that end up actually working a bit more. Like Caps, for example, always ends up giving up a wave level 3 on the variety of champions just to get his side laners ahead, and that's a decision that Showmaker would never ever take. Right? Showmaker kind of takes a lot of nuke duck based decisions, if that makes sense, or maybe Featherven based decisions, if that makes sense, and it works out really well in his region, and works out so long as the opponent is just worse than him in laning skill in general, and that's really good for him. But Canyon is so consistent in his understanding of the jungle in a way that I don't see like any other player in the world being, and he's always been like a player for me to watch. So people always like throw them out as this full winning lane team, and obviously versus like a team like TSM or something, that's always going to end up that way, and Canyon's not going to fucking matter. But like in general, like Canyon's always been the guy that I've always kind of looked at as being the real, I'm really fucking impressed with this guy, player on the team.
Dagda, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I think it's also just the ability to understand at pretty much all points in the game what the hell they need to be doing right now and how to just execute it so well. So like one of the I've seen a lot of like the Pantheon supports and stuff that Beryl was playing, and I've been really unimpressed with them just because it's like, okay, cool, they get stuck in a lane, they don't actually ever do anything, and then they just fall off as the game starts to go on. But the ability for them to read where to put their pressure to unlock a lot of people. Yeah, the red breast is gorgeous. Unlock a lot of people from the bottom side of the map, or if they need to, get Showmaker out of lane and start roaming as well. Like they just understand exactly what they need to do to counter what the opponent wants to do and how best to play their style of game. And it's just super impressive to see how in tune they are with every decision that they make. And it seems like if you ever make any sort of foot wrong against them, you're done for. Like the rogue one was a great example. I think it might have been Medic that you called it out, was when the Larson took like one step, he was not behind his teammates who had like cleanses and QSSs and Tom K and everything that was wrong, and then he just gets caught out with Nash ult and he's dead. Like it was just one step, and it was just they instantly all jumped on it. And I'm just so impressed with how quickly they can execute with what is exactly the right decision at that point in time.
It's brutal. Like Damwon they showed us day one that they can beat a team into the ground in the first 20 minutes, and then they showed us against Rogue that they can play it a little bit slower and just find their opportunity to strike, right? Like, I honestly think them versus Top Esports going to be the finals. I think they're the best two teams in the tournament by a long way.
Assuming the bracket pans out the way that it should.
Oh, yeah, obviously, yeah, but like...
Please. It never does
in the past. Put them in a quarterfinal together, guys. I know it's 2 first seeds. Just chuck them in there.
Hey, it's possible that they're not first seeds.
Damwon goes to semi.
Is it actually possible that Top and Damwon
It's
aren't
incredibly possible that Top Esports trolls at least one game. I could easily see them trolling 2 games.
Yeah. They're playing FlyQuest and Unicorns.
Look,
like,
I'm just saying, like,
no.
You haven't seen as much Top Esports as I've seen. Like, this is a team that's willing to just do stupid shit and throw the game.
You haven't seen enough G2.
I want to rant about Top Esports. They're like the last group. So I will say this. I don't think Damwon make it beyond the semi-finals. I don't think they ever will.
Who do you think they lose to? Like, who beats them in a semi-final?
A lot of team. So the reason why I don't ever think Damwon does it is because of how they treat scrims. They always treat scrims as like a simulated stage game that they have to try to win no matter what. And they always end up giving too much information over to their opponents. This is probably the most intangibles thing that I will ever say about a team, but you have to put this in with the fact that, like, my description of Snowflower right now is that his decision-making is kind of Nuke Duckish in the sense that he doesn't really take kind of like uncertain scenarios, right?
Showmaker, not Snowflower, right?
Fuck. Yes, sorry.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, the red breast.
I was going to say the red breast is talking already.
I know it's Bevvies. Okay, actually, I will say this, by the way. You guys have the honor of seeing me take my first sips of whiskey since last year, December. All right, so feel fucking honored on that. Yeah. I did just for this show.
Is that since EU Masters, basically?
No, since Christmas.
Yeah, since last year.
When was? I guess that was a couple of months before.
Yeah, but I fondly remember our drinks at EU Masters. But yeah, okay.
The
so
original
Showmaker, sometimes Snowflower, like making kind of nuke luck based decisions, and Canyon kind of makes those kinds of decisions as well. Like the reason why I say that, why I have Canyon rated so highly, and Medic knows this because I see him in chat sometimes. Like when I'm looking at early games, I'll generally look at it very jungle centered, and I'll be like, so right now the best thing for junglers to do would be like this. Canyon is like the only player in the world where he will always do this, and this, right? And then his laners will play really well around that, and that's generally because his laners are just so good that they will be in a position to play optimally around what Canyon is doing. But the problem is that because they are so consistent in this regard, they continue that consistency in scrims, and they become one of the easiest teams to read once you hit playoffs. So I don't know how many people know this. I think it was public, but G2 literally only beat Damwon in 2 games out of 21 last year. Yeah, in scrims, but they knew what Damwon at their optimal was. They knew what Damwon at their optimal was before they played them on stage, and that was the difference maker. You will always hear in Europe about these like scrim god teams that are like 6th, 7th place, sometimes even 10th place in Europe, right? I bring that up because I don't know if you guys hear about that in the LPL, but like Medic will have heard of these teams every single year.
Suning was the
and
swing
that's
gods for a long
because
time in LPL.
Yeah.
that's because you're giving up too much information. You are giving up too much information that they can actually prep with. Rather than treating scrims like, for example, G2 treated them, wherein every time we scrimmed a team like G2, they would always, it would always be like 40 kills in 20 minutes minimum if it was a slow game. You know, these guys were not playing as if it was on stage. Or Fnatic, for example, back in my day in Europe, these guys were just like spamming level 1s, insisting on a remake because they knew we would, you know, like do dirty things to get scrims with them, and then do level 1 again and over again. This is how teams that end up in the top treat scrims. Damwon don't treat scrims like that. Damwon treats scrims as a simulated stage game that they must win using the tactics they would use on stage, and they give up too much info with that. So I'm always worried when I hear about a team like Damwon and how good they're doing in scrims. They're doing that good because no other team is treating scrims that way, guys. And they're giving up too much info in doing that. And that was why I bet against them last year, because I had the same scrim info everyone else did. These players weren't exactly being like secretive about their results versus Damwon. They were like, okay, hell has opened up. We have gotten the worst draft possible. We actually got Damwon in quarters. We can't beat these guys. It's over. We're coming home early. Do you want to go out for beers on Sunday? Because I'm going to be there. Blah, 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 blah. Like it was all doom and gloom. I was just sat there like, you know what? You guys have won this basically on everything I'm saying and bet against them. I'm willing to take the same bet again this year. I don't think they go beyond semifinals because I think they've given up too much behind the scenes. And this is a very real thing. This is the closest to intangibles I'll ever give. People know how much I hate giving intangibles as like a reason. But this is one that I feel very strongly about. So I don't think they reach the finals.
Interesting.
I definitely think
still top the group.
Definitely still.
Yeah, they'll probably top the group. Yeah.
I think that one thing I will say though is there's an extent to which there are only certain teams that I think can exploit that. Like there is a level of talent within Damwon that I think certain teams can exploit if they have that information, like your top esports, for example. But I do think that top esports and Damwon, like on just a raw player skill level, are head and shoulders above the competition, honestly. Like the way that they basically always win every lane, they basically always win every skirmish. Like there's an extent to which there's more than just draft there. And especially when it's like they're winning 4v5s and things like that. Like there's an extent to which there is a limit here and only certain teams are going to be able to pass that. So I do think if Damwon has the right matchup, it doesn't even matter what information the enemy has.
I mean, sure, and that's what, like, I assume that's why you talk about them getting knocked out in quarters or in semis, right? Because that's when you play against teams who are good enough to actually capitalize on your mistakes, right?
Also, you have to capitalize on it more often than you don't, right? Like a playstyle like they have lends itself very good to a best of one scenario, because if you're going into a best of one scenario, you're probably playing multiple best of ones over the course of a couple of days, and you can't do what most teams do in a competitive split, which is attune their practice for the entire week based on one or two games that they're going to play. You know, you're playing against multiple teams.
Yeah, they don't get that luxury in the FPL.
Yeah.
Games. So let's sorry, I'm just going to digress this because
it's all good.
We're going on a long time about that one.
It's fine.
I want to hear.
We took 40 minutes to do.
I know, yeah. Since we've not really talked about Rogue, and this is a all EU cast.
Oh God, let's talk about Rogue.
Tell me a little bit about Rogue here, because
let's not. Finn is bad. Larson's good.
Let's do something more than just Finn is bad.
Larson's good. What? Larson is brilliant. Larson backpacked this team so much earlier.
I'm gonna grab a second beer while
he was like good player, and everyone else was like okay.
And
Finn
I love my boy.
That's my boy. Like Vander's played pretty well, in my opinion. Pretty okay.
Yeah. Vander was the guy I would bring up.
Hans Summers made a few mistakes, but I'm enjoying watching him. Finn is in this thing down here where I put the best of my rubbish. Right? Like,
I don't necessarily disagree with anything you said. I would just elevate the praise to like a different level on certain of the players. Like I think Vander's unironically being one of the best supports in Europe for the entirety of the split. I think after Kaiser, you can then talk about Vander contesting Mickey X for the next spot, because Mickey X, obviously at Worlds, everyone's just seeing him do his 1v9 performances, do his usual thing, because he kind of does ramp up with the level of competition he's against. But he wasn't like that the whole split, you know? Let's go. Thank God. Like,
go.
the rest of you guys not drinking was like making me feel a little bit, insecure about it.
Well,
but thank you.
I've literally had a whole bottle of wine on the go while we've been here. What?
Yeah,
I've been drinking. What are you talking about?
Okay, let's continue though. Okay, so
Okay,
yes,
yeah,
Finn
Ben
is not that
I'll
good.
get the Tesco
Finn
wine
is
of
if
top
you want.
lane.
It's all good.
Chug.
I love you, Dagda. All right, so Finn, so the state of top lane in Europe, I keep saying top lane is like the worst role in Europe right now, right? There's basically only one player that I think from the rookie scene in Europe is genuinely ready to move up towards the LEC and be like a top contender, right? And that's Sigenda. I think no one else really matters. Everyone else is too inconsistent. Ice Beast is only good when it gets to like super high levels, and otherwise he's really so-so. Aggressivo is really good on Irelia, but even that's inconsistent. Like, these guys have peaks and troughs. Sigenda's the only one that is consistently really, really strong. Yopper got destroyed by visa issues. I'm sorry, Yopper, if you're watching this, I just need to see more of you. But like, Sigenda's the only real one that I can talk about. Otherwise, it's looking at people with potential like Gabo, right? So top lane's in a dire state. Finn is a symptom of said dire state. I do think that there is something going on where people aren't able maybe to teach lane in Europe like they are in other regions, because in Europe it's been less of a necessity for a long time to have to actually coach the solo lane role. And I say this because I praise Mad Lions on one hand for when they have really well prepared drafts versus certain teams, right? And that, for me, will still be a coaching staff thing. Maybe the players as 5 are getting together and just 9-heading the draft for the next week, very specifically tailored for the opponents. But I kind of doubt that. I generally assume they're just playing solo queue and getting mechanically good, right? But at the same time, we haven't really seen a Roamer like improve, right? And when I look at Rogue, a lot of them have improved. Inspired has improved, even if I won't put him as a top tier jungler yet or anything like that. But Finn just hasn't improved from the early point that he was at, which is a shame because he'd improved very quickly in the year previously to when he joined the LEC. I think there might be something going on with staff where they're not able to coach solo lanes as strongly as they should do. And I'd understand why that would happen in Europe, because we used to just like breed solo laners like rabbits, right? But with top lane, that's not really to the same extent anymore, and top lane's being a little bit neglected. And Finn, I think, is more of a victim of that. I don't want to go like super hard on Finn, so that's my rigid defense of him. But he is underperforming, and that is somewhat being exposed at Worlds. Yeah. I think Inspired has a very set in stone way of playing out early game that hasn't changed too much from last year, except that sometimes he does have first clears that are actually pretty good relative to lane states. Last year, apparently I'm boring medic. Last year, I would say a lot that he was very good at fixing his team's terrible map state, but he himself created that terrible map state in the first clear. That's less true this year. It's still true in a lot of games, but it's less true this year. For example, thinking about his Hecarim games right now, his Hecarim games are actually pretty good in general, but they comp specifically around that. So that's more like a general team-wide aspect kind of defending him there. And then when it comes to the bot lane, I think Vander's brilliant. I think Hans Sammer's a really, really good laner. I think Hans Sammer's always had more of an issue with lane setups than anything to do with his own particular mechanics. Like on Misfits, we actually... on H2K, got our wins off of them because we knew that Hans Sammer would side lane in scenarios where we would be able to get very easy river control and deny him being able to group with his team and get good team fights that way. But that's more of like a team-based thing, right? I think Vander's performed really well, and I think Larson is phenomenal on a specific set of champions. But if he's on that specific set of champions, he 1v9s the game. So he's kind of the idea people had in their head of Nemesis, but like actually... because people always had this idea in their head of Nemesis that maybe he has like a bit of a shallow champ pool, but he's like a god on them, except for the people who, for some weird reason, think he has a champion ocean. Larson actually is that. Larson's Echo needs work because he doesn't go for proper flank opportunities. The things he does on Akali in team fights give me a lot of hope for him, though, because I think he actually has one of the best Akalis in the entire region. And given the fact that I would describe him as a mage player, mostly, that's actually really strange. With his Echo, he needs to find flank opportunities that are literally handed to him a bit better. With his Akali, he does really good things in team fights. Generally, my bar for a good Akali, and this is probably going to get memed, but like you can extrapolate this yourself, is if the Akali is the kind of guy who will just E in and then immediately W and just engage that way and cause a lot of disruption in the fight, then I will put them automatically on a tier above other Akalis. He is that kind of Akali, and he also plays side lane well and actually finds angles really well on him. For some really reasons, he doesn't do that on Echo so much. But these are the only two assassins that we talk about him playing, because he doesn't really leave the mage champ all that much. As a front to backer, he is a giga good carry. Like, this guy, the first half of the split, I wasn't thinking of the team as Rogue. I was just thinking of it as Larson, and like there are 4 other guys there, and occasionally I have to acknowledge they exist, but it's mostly just Larson, right? And that has continued at Worlds. Even the games that they have lost, that has continued at Worlds, right? Azir versus Zoe, sure. Maybe I think you should have locked in the Echo and just tried to hard carry. But he was still performing so well that game. And it wasn't until he was like in 2v4 situations and trying to suicide to like stop Barons and try to win the game that he started dropping his KD or anything. It's not like he dropped his KD or was maintaining his KD because he's ignoring potential like flip scenarios. He was just playing so phenomenally well. And I really do think like players like Larson are the future of the region. And I think in a couple of years' time, Larson will just be the hands down best player in the region. So there's my Larson run. There's my take on Rogue. I don't necessarily think they can make it out just on the basis of having 2 really good players. But I really wanted to highlight how well Larson is doing, because I don't think you can give this guy enough credit. Like, Rogue were competing for first place majority because this guy existed.
Damn.
I think that's the hardest thing.
That was long, but I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It was very in depth.
I haven't had a show for the whole fucking split. I haven't been able to stream for the last 2 months, so I've had a lot to say.
Have you heard of conversation? It's usually
being able to see some conversation, right?
I just listen to the voices in my head, and that's conversation, right?
Dagda, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think that's the hard thing for Rogue is like when you look at their 2 good lanes. You kind of mentioned Vander, we mentioned Larson as well in mid lane. Like, you're up against JDG and Damwon, who've got like Beryl, Showmaker, Yagao, Lumao, insanely strong for each of their roles. And then you're up against arguably the 2 best top laners in the whole fucking tournament right now, in Zoom and Nuggery as well. So like, you're just gonna get exploited as Finn. Especially like maybe if you're up against some of the other teams, it wouldn't be as obvious, but you are against the 2 best top laners in this tournament, so he's always going to struggle, and it's just going to make it so much worse. So for Rogue, it just feels like you end up being nullified where you're strongest at, and you're actually like massively exploited where you're weakest at. So I just don't see them really having a chance.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Well, I'm going to close out the Group B conversation there then, because rest in peace, PSG talent.
Otherwise, we'll be here for like 3 hours.
We're already beyond the hour mark that I said was our estimated runtime. So
I am sorry. I'm so used.
We bear the equal brunt to this. We took 30 minutes to discuss whether Ocean Soul was a good idea.
I will say the Ocean Soul discussion was not a part of my initial rundown. I'll admit. I should have allowed for that. It was foolish.
I love those kinds of discussions. Though.
They're fun. So Group C, super
Group C,
easy.
yes.
Fnatic, TSM, Genji, LGG. We all agree. Nice. Okay. Group D.
Hang on a second.
No, I think Genji probably still top that group, even though Fnatic beat them. I think Fnatic seemed like such a roller coaster of a fucking team to me. Like, I'm surprised they won today, even like casting it in the moment. Like, when they won that team fight at mid, like they have 2 people mid and 2 people on Dragon, and then they win the team fight. I was like, what the actual hell is happening? What, like, this team, maybe they just got on and they won? I'm like, you guys can inform more on it than I can, but
at risk of sounding like a moron, I'm going to take a stab at this, and then Veteran and Dagter can tell me how wrong I am.
Okay.
it's play-by-play life for you right there.
I
Let's
know,
go.
yeah. The way I saw it was, and this is what I thought about Genji coming into the tournament, was that Genji are by default a slow team, right? They like to play slow. They don't generally push the tempo that much. At MSC, that was challenged in a big way, and the LPL teams that just played faster than them just beat them. And then obviously Top Esports was just better in all regards in the late game. But it felt to me like Fnatic putting that much pressure on them in the early game made them sweat. Like, Genji did not feel comfortable for 1 second of that entire game. And I think that in matchups where they are against slower opponents, Genji are going to look like an exceptionally good team because they do have exceptionally good late game team fighting. But when you challenge them in the early game and really push them like that, it feels to me that they don't really deal with that pressure very well at all. And I could easily see Fnatic doing that again.
You first.
Yeah, I think Gen G definitely are a team that are based on having control of the game and then using that to actually win off of. I think certainly Clid is someone that works well with BDD and trying to set that control and very heavy on the getting wards down and stuff like that. But I think the thing that it's the thing that you talked about for Fnatic is also the thing that I haven't been impressed with them is that like they seem to have to throw the game into chaos in the early stages so they can try and like do weird things that just catch their opponent out. And I think against better teams where you're kind of at least expecting it to a certain extent, they're really going to struggle. Like I remember watching, I can't remember what game it was, but I remember watching them in the LEC this year, just one of the games that I managed to catch, and they were like diving tier 2 towers with TPs at like 8 minutes into the game. I was just like, what in the hell is going on? So I think certainly
Based.
so I think certainly, yeah, it can catch some teams out, but I think over time, Fnatic are not going to be able to run with this. I think Gen G second time around should be able to.
That's the thing, though. How much are we really going to allow this to be called overtime? Because we're in a single double round robin, right? Like they don't have a lot of time to prepare for this and get ready for it next time.
I will say though, if an LPL caster is being surprised and saying what the hell is going wrong, we're doing something right.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like the whole thing revolves around self-made. If you can like shut down self-made, it just feels like Fnatic don't really have anything to do.
I think that's fair.
It's quite clear to me when it comes to Fnatic that the core dynamics in the team are the Whipper Hillersang dynamic and self-made relative to these two dynamic. And this is similar to how they always have been. You could tell and predict the way that Broxah was developing if you acknowledge that he was essentially either pathing directly to one side lane or he had no idea what he was doing. And that's because we knew that Caps was not vocal whatsoever initially when he joined, and he eventually became a player who could give good information in game. And that's more of a testament to Youngbuck than anything. And similar with Nemesis. Nemesis initially did not give any communication because Selfmade gave all of that on Mad Lions. And then Nemesis eventually became a really good information giver. And again, I do give a lot of the credit for that towards Youngbuck. Initially, Broxah was unable to, like, Broxah I always said was good at connecting the dots, but he was never good at setting the dots himself, right? And as a result, you could predict how he does on TL right now if you were using my model. With Selfmade is getting the information that he needs. But he is able to acknowledge midsection in the same regard, and he's able to acknowledge the map in the same regard. But you do get stuff like what you got versus Genji, which is that he worked really well with Hillersang, who is a very communicative player, to shut down Genji's bot lane to the point where B Diddy, who I always call B Diddy, and I never really know what the appropriate official pronunciation of that is.
It's
okay.
Or Big Dick Daddy. You've got the two options, the two sides.
Are you allowed to say that as a Wirecaster?
Hey, this is Bevvies. We're just having a pint in the pub.
Bevvies with the boys. Right. I'm just the boy here.
Yeah.
The DRX mid laner, or no? Okay, sorry. Okay, the other mid laner that is not Nemesis. The MVP, okay, who gave Nemesis a 15 CS lead, TP'd bot side, looks like a desperation play to me because he didn't escort his wave in on midsection to make sure that it would actually crash properly. He left it at terrible wave state, and he might just be used to players not actually opting in for the freeze and actually opting in to try to match him on bot side. Nemesis did not do that, and their bot section with jungle played so well that B Diddy was not actually a factor. Down on bot side, right? That's very, very rare. And then Nemesis actually got a massive CS lead on that. And for anyone who is not aware of Assassin's place in this day and age, she is an assassin the moment that she hits 2 items. We don't quite know why Riot is allowing this, but they are allowing this. No, Orianna is now an assassin.
Orianna, okay, yeah. You
once
said
she hits 2 items
place in the current meta, so I was trying to identify which champion.
Well, Orianna, I don't think of Orianna as a mage once she hits like a 2 item spike now. She just one shots people.
Yeah,
now.
It's just shockwave dissonance, right? Like
it's really disgusting, to be honest, and it should not be allowed in the game. And you guys should really be nerfing
I mean,
that.
well, it's like Syndra, right? Outside of just her ultimate, like you just Q E W and the entire team is dead. Good job. Bravo.
I will.
By the
say-
way,
Sorry.
I don't think B
I
Diddy
won't say.
expected. I will just because I've been trying to finish this point for a while.
Sorry,
all right? Let me
finish your
this
point, and then we'll talk about
Finish
mages.
the fucking point, guys. All right, like holy shit. Okay, so B Diddy, that looked like an act of desperation to me. It gave Nemesis a lead that he's not used to getting in Europe. In Europe, normally no one would fucking give up that kind of a lane advantage to help their inting bot lane. All right, they would just flame their bot lane in post VOD review afterwards and be like, "What the fuck are you doing this one? I'm dicking this guy in mid lane." All right, this guy is like 20, 40 CS down. I never wanted to see Nemesis play Orianna again, but on the basis of how it performed in Europe. But in Worlds, B Diddy did this. He didn't expect Nemesis to do what he did. Nemesis ends up ahead, and Nemesis' Orianna ends up being a threat for the rest of the game. We don't even see that fucking scenario ever occur in Europe for very good reason. And when you guys are describing the team as you're describing them right now as being more of a slow team that gets caught out by fast-paced teams, then I kind of understand. I'd be lying if I said that I watched this team in the regular split. I would be completely lying. But it does make sense of what I just saw there. Seems like they didn't expect this. Nemesis is kind of the slow aspect that matches their team, while Selfmade Hylissang was like the faster aspect that they aren't used to playing against. And this caused a very unique dichotomy.
I think life into the early game as well, which didn't help.
Life into the fucking draft.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck are you doing not taking flash from Rakan? I don't give a shit about your magical like technology, right? I literally don't give a monkeys. Take spellbook if you fucking want it. You take flash exhaust. Like you are an yeah,
Or ignite.
that's what I was gonna say.
Say it.
I don't care. Like just take
Well, yeah.
flash. You're Rakan.
Yeah.
Please take flash.
Yeah, I mean,
enough.
dying level 1 and no heal either. So like, even if you get caught, you're just fucked. So it's just like level 1. All right, walked into Hilly's hook. I'd completely forgot about it. It's only when you were talking I remembered. It was just that level 1 where it's just like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna int my ass off in this bottom lane, and then all right, cool. And I think that's why like. You nailed it, veteran, with the desperation play. Was just like,
Yeah.
oh, for fuck's sake, they're gonna die again, and you get the double TP to just be like, right, we got to put the stop to this. But it just fucked up the rest of the map for them. And honestly,
I mean,
like, if that doesn't happen,
Yeah.
I mean, it ends up as a much easier game. You were talking about the mid lane, but certainly top lane as well, like giving up that entire wave state as well. And
Yeah.
you still got this Ezreal, where the whole idea is, hey, we're gonna build off of his cheap 2-item spike, and he's now in the fucking dumpster, so he doesn't become relevant until way later and never really gets relevant. So the whole thing just fell apart from that.
Veteran,
So
I'm
my
gonna let you have
apologies.
last word here, but keep it concise, and then I want to move on to LG. Okay.
So,
Okay,
initially I was
wait,
going to
so
say
I'm
my
just gonna,
apologies to Medic, but now I'm going to say my apologies to Medic and Munchables because I'm going to go on a bit of one here. But
God.
so the spellbook Rakan is actually something I've been advocating when it comes to Twitch
But you
Rakan
take
itself.
flash.
But Twitch Rakan itself is a lane that I'm going to explain why I like it for Twitch Rakan, why I don't like it here, Medic. All right, don't
Buckle
worry,
in,
I agree with
everyone.
you on this. Okay, I don't agree on. I agree with you on this. All right, it should be Guardian in this particular lane. So Twitch Rakan is a lane that a team that could got a lot of success with, right? They got a lot of success with, as I believe it was Dugda that said it, because they were playing against
He's
like
that
worse
direction.
teams.
He's not that direction. You got to point towards him.
He's
For me,
up
he's
and
that
right
way.
to you.
No, no.
On the
Whatever.
screen, he's
Oh,
up and
you
right.
have to look at the Twitch stream. He's that way. He's that way.
Just okay. Medic's my hand at this point. All right, just wherever Medic's pointing is where Dagda is. All right,
Can you put it
the wrong way,
beautiful-
Medic.
Yeah, there we go. There we
beautiful
go.
man that comes from the same land that produces this God's elixir right here. Okay, all right. Anyway, pointed out. Twitch Rakan worked really well because they were against worse teams. Twitch Rakan should never win late. So I actually advocate for Spellbook on Twitch Rakan because it allows you to play in a much more defensive capacity, whereas I view Guardian as a much more aggressive rune because it allows you to take trades that you otherwise wouldn't. Whereas Twitch Rakan should at most be trading 1-for-1 in lane and then outscale. The way that Twitch Rakan should work, and a lot of people kind of got this wrong, what Rakan does is with Rakan's ultimate, I don't know who Medic's pointing out right now, like by my
So
understanding, it
that's,
should be us.
I found out it's apparently reversed on the Twitch stream. So he's over there. When actually on the camera,
I did say that. I said that at the time.
look, man, I'm sorry. There's only 3 voices I can hear at once. One of them is my own. The other 2 are veteran talking about Twitch.
The other two are the other two voices in your head, right?
Rakan's
Tell
ultimate.
me
So
about
a
the
lot of
bed,
people talk about the invisibility of Twitch benefiting Rakan, all right? But it works the other way around. Twitch can now take lethal tempo because Rakan's ultimate delays the fight enough after Twitch Ws to allow lethal tempo to proc, and then Twitch becomes completely unstoppable. It is a scaling thing, right? You're not going to have the ultimate even level 1 to 6. On level 6, it's not going to automatically win you the 2v2, etc. You are playing this lane to lose. So when you pick it against a team that actually is able to play lane dominant bot lanes like fucking Draven, obviously you're going to get completely shafted, and now you're just the laughing stock of your region like every other team that comes out of your region, right? But in this scenario, when you're playing with a champion like Ezreal that doesn't have to seed lane 24/7, and you're playing Rakan, which I'm sorry, Dom. Like, I love you, Dom, but you're wrong on this one. Actually does well into Leona. You shouldn't be taking Unsealed Spellbook, and you shouldn't be taking these Summoner spells, and I agree with Medic on this point. But the Unsealed Spellbook, I would have loved to see the Twitch Rakan lane, because with Twitch Rakan lane, you actually should be losing anyway, right? And then going for these guaranteed 1-for-1 trades is actually beneficial for you, because you'll outscale everything on the fucking map. Like, if you're trading 1-for-1 as the lesser scaling team, you're just losing. That's just a losing fucking trade. So I actually like Life's setup if it was on the Twitch Rakan lane team Liquid, but I don't like it with the Ezreal lane Life, because you actually had an opportunity to win this lane, because you are good versus Leona. You can sustain the burst post 6 versus Leona, and then just delay them and get back to safety so that your AD carry can do all of the damage that he can. With which I disagree with Dom on that, but I don't disagree with any of Dom's guests on that. So wherever he's just hearing the same thing he's heard like 50 billion times already. So yeah, that's my mini rant about that particular setup. I do agree with Medic, but I just wanted to expand on it so everyone has the knowledge and we can share it and be free. And Medic's drinking wine because, you know.
So Fnatic first, Gen G second, LG third, TSM fourth, right? TSM don't get a game, we all agree? Cool.
I
mean,
agree.
I
well,
really
it depends.
Because...
I want to give Dagda an opportunity here because we've not really talked about LGD, and Dagda knows a lot about LGD, and he likes LGD. I'm not quite sure why, but he does.
Wait, you like LGD?
So
well, I like Dagda. So what
happened was, I like LGD because I said I think this team's going to finish fourth when I looked at them when they got on paper at the start of the split, and then they ended up fourth. So I somehow became the LGD guy, so now I got to support them to the grave. But I think to give due to LGD, they look shocking in play-ins, but at least in groups now they're starting to look a little bit better. I still don't think they've looked amazing, but I think Shea is a really, really strong carry. I think we've started to see Mark actually really stepping up as well. Mark, at least in regular split, was abysmal. We saw a lot of that in play-ins as well, where he'd missed like every fucking spell he threw out. But at least now in groups, he's actually starting to connect with
he has hit a few spells.
Yeah. And as well, I think like LGD as a whole seem to be getting, at least their team fighting seems to be a little bit better. We saw a hint of it in playoffs, but I like quickly dismantled that when we got into play-ins for Worlds. But at least I think LGD, they do stand a decent chance. I don't know. Like I had them in fourth for pick'ems, but honestly now looking at it, there is a chance that they can maybe take something off of Fnatic or Gen G depending on how their game goes, and they do end up taking that second place spot. So like I'm not completely writing them off. I still have Gen G first, Fnatic, LGD now, but there is a very real possibility that LGD come in on a good day when they're not tilted, Peanut gets his champions that aren't fucking Lilia, and then he's able to actually do what he wants to.
So I actually think the issue for LGD is Kindred's just going to be banned against them every single game now.
The thing is,
I think Peanut
like,
just gets banned out.
Basically, what Peanut needs is a strong early game dueler. So if you can stick him onto like Lee Sin, a Graves, something like this, where he can actually go into the jungle, work alongside like Shie's pressure and
I watched Peanut
kill them. Like you're good.
I watched his Lee Sin in play-ins. I did not feel.
Yeah, I know.
Pretend players. Here's the secret, Medic. With LGD, like there are a lot of games that you just have to pretend didn't happen, and then we're going to cherry pick these select few where it look good, and we're going to say that that's what LGD can do, and
like
just hope.
When we look at LGD, they beat IG. They looked amazing. Did they ever play Suning in playoffs? Okay. No, not ever. Or in regional finals.
Yeah, we're going to
completely forget the series. Just told me Peanut has a 33% win rate on Lee Sin this year. So I'm just like, play it all you want. Play as much fucking Lee Sin as you want, LGD. That's very good for me. I'm very happy if you play Lee Sin.
I mean, look at summer, because the year is very. Spring is just like.
Spring is a different story.
Terrible team.
Give me 30 seconons and I'll find out his stats for summer. Here we go.
But yeah,
I just summer. You say on Lee Sin. 30% win rate. It actually goes down.
By 3%.
If I just look at summer.
No.
Either way, The idea is there, right? Basically, like LGD look.
3-7.
Shh.
You're not doing a very good job
You
here,
just
Duncan.
explain how
Well,
they
the
win
whole-
with Lee. Okay.
I'm less
Hang
convinced
on.
about LGD.
So what I'm
now.
trying to say is, what he needs is a champion where he can actually go in. The reason I don't like him for Lilia is that he can't actually like skirmish well as well as he usually does, and can't get in and invade the enemy jungle because you just don't have that pressure. So essentially, what we want to see is him working with Mark, like we saw towards the end of the summer split, but also a lot in playoffs as well, and off of Shie's pressure in mid as well. And honestly, you just kind of stick Long Xing onto something that's like an Ornn, like anything that can just set up these really easy engages is where LGD shine, because we've seen Mark can be a little bit shaky, and because they rely so heavily on team fights to actually find their victories, they need something that's just that easy go button for them. But they are a team that relies on that early snowball. Otherwise, their mid to late game shot calling is just abysmal.
I will say as well, if Lang Xing isn't on Ornn, or Camille and Xie has Twisted Fate, they don't win, as a rule. Those are the two scenarios in which LGD wins games, in my mind. Anyway, let's move on from LGD. I just wanted to give Dagda an opportunity to talk about that. So, very quickly, let's just go around and put our final placements then for Group C. I'll start. I'm going Fnatic, Gen G, TSM, LGD. No, wait. LGD, TSM. What am I talking about?
Ah, that's a good prediction. TSM. Okay.
They're coming
Good
back,
job,
boys.
LCS fanboy.
Dagda, you go next. We'll go
Oh,
clockwise.
sorry. Gen G, Fnatic, LGD, TSM.
Okay, Medic.
Oh, it's not a U4 if I don't go Fnatic, Gen G, LGD, TSM.
And Veteran.
After Riot started the Euphoria show, a lawyer who's actually now a team owner messaged me saying that.
How do you turn this into a rant?
Because
should
he
have
did
copied-
the Euphoria.
This isn't even a
He
rant,
did
this
the
was one
Euphoria
sentence.
hashtag
Oh,
long
yes,
before
anyway.
the
Yeah,
podcast.
they told me that they were right and I should have trademarked the Euphoria, and they'd actually told me like a year earlier that I should have trademarked the Euphoria.
Wouldn't it be
And I
difficult
was
to
just like,
trademark
nah.
it when it's a word?
Well, it's because of the capitalization
Yeah,
of
it's
the
not a
U.
word.
I actually have an argument that I
E-Euphoria.
can
you
actually.
could, yeah, but then
Yeah.
So
The trademark's different from
not to
copyright
be
in that
right
regard.
Here is all we would have done is say, hey, we just capitalize the whole thing, and you have no stay.
I would potentially have had a case there anyway because I would have
Let's-
trademarked some variant.
Let's move
of
the
it.
conversation
sure.
on from
Anyway.
It's hard to
territory.
trademark an entire word.
I mean, yeah, but it's not hard to steal it apparently. I'll do Gen G, Fnatic, LGD,
I'm
TSM.
not even on the fucking show.
This is your
shouldn't have
fault,
con-
Medic. This is your
You
fault.
should have contested that point then.
Ocean Race sucks.
Okay, get veteran. Give me your four in Group C, please. I
Gen
beg
G,
you.
Fnatic, LGD, TSM. I think Gen G will realize that they can't do certain things after their first game versus Fnatic, and then they will adapt to that in the second game. I do really want to praise Selfmade on his performance, though. I think Selfmade is the best jungler in Europe now. Last year, I was saying it would be close between him and Jankos. This year, I'm thinking it was close between actually him and Shadow rather than Jankos. But then Shadow shit the bed, as everybody saw. So it's just Selfmade uncontested, to be honest. And I'm really, really happy for him. He deserved it. He was one of the best ERL junglers for a long ass time, and I'm really happy for him.
Veteran. Yeah. Okay, we're cutting it there, right? We can move on to the next.
I was going to
Yes,
move
we
to
are,
Group D.
Medic.
Do you want one?
Despite what you
If
said,
it's
I was
very
going to do
short,
that.
Medic,
Yeah.
you can-
I was hoping Veteran didn't go on a discussion as to why he was one of the best ERL junglers.
Oh,
'cause
right. I thought you wanted to
felt
add
it was
on to
coming.
it. Okay.
And Veteran, I love the amount of knowledge you have, and it is really informative. But I've had a whole bottle of wine now, and I'm ready to finish this conversation.
Grab the other bottle then.
This
What
is
are you waiting
okay.
for? Grab the other fucking bottle.
Group D. I'm moving the conversation on now. Let's talk Group D. Top
I love this
esports,
guy. I
obviously,
love this guy, really do.
clearly head and shoulders above the rest of the competition. DRX looking pretty good, actually. Surprising. They actually did better than I was expecting, but that is because Unicorns of Love completely and utterly have shit the bed. I'm so disappointed. I thought that they were actually gonna upset people. They look great in play-ins. I was excited. They've got cool names. They play cool picks. They bring out this weird shit, and then it's just not looked. I mean, they played Karthus, so that was good.
So I would like to say that whereas much has been said, and by much I mean like one tweet by one analyst, but it's really well known, has been said about how No Man's lost lane. versus PoE in the first 2 levels, I would like to say that he actually had PoE on the ropes before he died, because he actually out PoE anyway, even though PoE dicked him in the first 2 levels. But then, when that grouping happened, he decided to just run up and get one shot. And I will never understand why, because I was just sat there like, oh my god, you have it, you had it, man! You had it, man! And I was just really disappointed there. And then after that point, I don't give a fuck about unicorns anymore. You guys can lose every fucking game after this. But you had it, man. You fucking had it. I was watching it on the Pro View. Man. And it was so disappointing, actually. I would also like to make the case for me being Knight's biggest fan in the world. I've been watching him.
I don't know, Bevvies would have a word to say about that.
I'm sorry. He's played
I've been watching him since season 6. I've been watching him since season fucking 6, all right? All right, I've been watching him since season 6. I brought him up on stream consistently as the Talon player to watch, because he used to be a Talon player. If no one really knows this, like the journey of Knight is actually an inspirational kind of fucking journey, right? He was contract held on his initial team, and his reaction to that was not like, fuck this shit, I'm gonna leave this scene for a scene that won't just completely abuse my labor. And instead he was like, fuck it, I'm gonna go on the Korean server, I'm gonna play nothing but Talon, I'm gonna hit rank 1, and he fucking did it. He was the best Talon in the fucking world. And I watched him because I am a massive advocate for Talon for gaining elo, all right? So I've watched this guy for almost half a fucking decade, okay? So I am the world's biggest Knight fan, and I'm so fucking glad he's at Worlds.
So that's all the time we've got, veterans. So the conclusion here, Knight is going to be playing Talon, guaranteed.
Just on that, one of the stories that people don't realize is that, like, so Knight and Yagao are from the same hometown. They played on the same team in, like, a PC box to be with. But Yagao was the starting mid laner. Knight wasn't considered good enough to play mid laner. Now Yagao got played mid, and he had to fill. Knight was
the Dumpling Bros.
It's such a cool story. Like, you could make a movie out of Knight's journey to this world championship.
Honestly, you could.
Right?
You really could.
Yeah.
I mean, the problem is Faker exists, so he's never going to get a movie for him before Faker gets a movie.
His story is so much more interesting than Faker. Wait, his story is so much more interesting than Faker, and I'm sorry, but for the last 2 years, he's been better than Faker as well. Yes, it's so much more interesting. Faker has not had anywhere near as much opposition in his life as this guy has had. All right, nowhere near. Nowhere near. No. You can't even try. No. What? No. Faker's organization has been on his side the whole fucking time. This guy's had to fight the orgs that he's been in.
A few days ago, but that doesn't mean you can ride in here on the Knight hype.
He's had to fight the orgs that he's been in at every fucking stage of his career. Like, he actually has had to do that. Like, the world has actually been against Knight. The world has never not been against. The world has never been against Faker.
The world's never not been against Faker.
The world has always been on Faker's side, alright? The world has always been on Faker's side.
Hey, the world is against every player at the World Championship, guys.
Well, it's not against Knight. It's fucking Jackie Love's bot.
Yeah, Rocky Zoro, cheers, man. Appreciate that.
So,
all right.
Enough of Knight. Can I just praise Jackie Love, because I think Jackie Love's the only AD carry from China that is actually even vaguely good at the game. You guys are not good when you don't have VCI there, but Jackie Love is
best center in the world. Really good.
Okay, sure. Jackie Love is actually
Jackie Love is the best center in the world.
Yeah.
I think he was laughing at what Dag just said.
Yeah, no, I was. Yeah, it was
I didn't hear what
comment.
Dag
It was
said,
a Loken comment. It was the Loken comment that I was laughing at, not the center comment.
Loken's center is bad.
Yeah.
I will allow Medic to take this.
Loken's center is bad. Jackie Love's center is good. I've taken the point.
Jackie Love is one of the best AD carry players in the world.
Excuse me, veteran, you allowed me to take it.
True. Continue, my friend.
I'm done, Munch.
Medic, you're a gentleman. Medic just donated 10 subs, and I appreciate that.
10. All right.
And I don't want to put any pressure on, but that is a custom here on the show that all of the guests donate.
All right, that makes me not want to.
All right. So we're at an hour and a half now, so let's sort of conclude some of our conversations here. I realized we didn't really
2 to 3 hours
get into Group D. What? I said one.
Okay, so here's the thing with Group D. I'll do it for you quick, Munch. Top Esports, one of the best teams in the world. They're going to win. DRX, okay, but Choki's going to show up and Def doesn't look amazing. Other teams, who gives a shit? We're done.
Fair enough. I can get behind that. Right. I'm gonna let Dag to go next, and then Veteran, you have final word, and then we're gonna close out the show.
yeah, top esports DRX, FlyQuest, UL haven't impressed. FlyQuest, well, they're second last, and then top esports just look amazing. I don't know if they're gonna win the whole thing. I will wait and see if veterans that one thing is
FlyQuest gonna
right.
win the
I
whole
think that's
thing.
gonna be
Is that-
really
that's fine.
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I had to take the NA spotlight for Munch, but no, I think top esports. I have
Thank
them
you,
as favorites,
veteran.
but I still think Damwon looks scary, and I'm curious to see. Veteran hasn't steered me wrong, but I still think Damwon are a force to be reckoned with. But either way, top esports, DRX, FlyQuest, UL.
It's difficult to steer you wrong, Dagda, because you're genuinely really good at what you do, and Wyatt, you should look into this guy.
true.
Don't look into Munch's shit.
Yeah,
He's not wrong. He's not wrong.
I wanna briefly talk about FlyQuest. So I actually think FlyQuest are fucking terrible. I think part of the reason why they are terrible is because of the way that their bot lane is playing a lot right now. And particularly the way that their bot lane was recently playing when they decided that they had a randomly good early game for some reason. It was actually horrible. Like jungle support is actually terrible on this team, but I keep hearing like I don't want this to sound like really, really rude or anything, but I keep hearing people saying that like Centaurion is one of the best junglers in North America and blah 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 and all this kind of shit. And obviously everyone will just always hype Ignore, but the CS deficit that occurred bot lane was not because of Wild Turtle. It was not because of Wild Turtle whatsoever. It's because their support was moving for a lot of mid priority they didn't even have to go for, and the jungler wasn't doing anything of that whatsoever in terms of rotating towards bot side, and it ended up with wave scenarios that were really, really unfavorable for Wild Turtle. So I think Wild Turtle got like really shafted in that game unnecessarily, and people don't really talk about that because in the post-game interview, Centaurion decided that early game was really, really good for them. It was not, and it was jungle support's understanding of the early game that caused that. I think Wild Turtle is actually surprising me. You don't really expect a player who's been playing since season fucking 3 to still be, even vaguely good at the game. But Wild Turtle is. So that's the reality that we live in. And I just want to reestablish that's the reality that we live in. I do think PoE played really well. But it was mostly like abusing opponents' mistakes, like in the Unicorns of Love game that a lot of people attribute to him solo carrying. I do think that there were scenarios where he was open to be shut out by better players, so I'm not going to lead this hype into being like them being a top 2 team, right? I think the way the standings are right now reflect the way that I think the standings will end in terms of top DRX, FlyQuest, Unicorns of Love. Just wanted to bring up FlyQuest because we're kind of like glossing over Group D a little and we hadn't talked about them yet, so I did the whole thing.
Do you just want to... Sorry, you go, Medic.
I was going to say, as soon as you mentioned the player playing in Season 3 still being good is surprising, I had a few names spring to mind, and I realized, it is surprising, because it was Bjornsson and Double Lift, and I was like, oh, yep, it's pretty fucking surprising that anyone is still good. Also, my EP-ness is bigger than yours, veteran. I'm just saying. Like, if you wanna,
this is a little overkill.
Now I believe that you had the whole bottle of wine, Medic. I believe it.
Here it is. Empty is an empty thing.
The hilarious thing is,
you have a way with words, Medic.
The weird thing about this is that
today I called TSM Team Liquid, okay, on fucking broadcast.
That's true.
Like, what the actual hell am I doing?
I put TL Pog in the Twitch
I
chat.
called Biofrost, called JJ. 2 days ago I called TSM G2. Like, what is going on in my brain that I'm like, and G2 are losing this game? It's like, G2 are nowhere near this game, Medic. G2 are a good team. TSM are not.
It's all you can think about ever since they've started putting you on payroll. That was the...
I'm a freelancer. They don't put me on payroll. They pay me per day.
It was a joke.
It's mean, Munch.
Were you ever on payroll, actually? I'm interested.
I was a contractor originally, so it was different. I got paid a salary for 9 months of the year. As opposed to now where I get paid per day, right? So
I didn't know because like some were on the payroll and now aren't. Blah blah blah.
That's actually quite not as often, but we shouldn't. Yeah, this is not the time to talk about it.
All right,
Thank you for the intake of breath.
Close out the show.
We'll talk about
it.
So I'm going to say as well, top esports, DRX, FlyQuest, Unicorns, because
we all agree.
Because that is the way it's going to go. That is going to be the end of the show. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. You each have now, like, I guess, 10, 15 seconds, 20 seconds to just shout out whatever the fuck you're doing at the minute and what people should go and do. So, Dagda, you go first, then Medic, and then Veteran.
I am in the middle of trying to cook up some content, and I'm going to start streaming that. So that'll be over on twitch.tv/DagdaLPL when I eventually get that up and running. But that's kind of all I'm up to at the moment.
Sweet. Go give him a follow, everyone. Medic.
I post half-naked photos of myself on Medic Casts on Instagram.
And OnlyFans.
Yeah, that's about it. My OnlyFans is in the works. I have to get riot approval apparently. So
He's also casting a League of Legends tournament at the minute, in case you guys didn't know. So
true.
check out Twitch
I'm
TV
doing
slash
Riot
Riot
day
Games.
2 of what day is it today? Is it Tuesday today?
Maybe.
Is it Tuesday or Wednesday?
Tuesday.
I'm casting Thursday. I'll see you then.
Sweet. Thursday it is. And Veteran, do you want to close us out here, mate?
So I will say, don't expect me to be able to stream again until the early parts of next year. I've just gotten a little bit unlucky with the places that I've been staying at, so sorry about that, guys. But otherwise, twitter.com/veteran, twitch.tv/veteraneu, and on my Twitter, veteraneu, there on the pinned tweet, you can actually join my Discord. Obviously, the Discord link is a bit too complex for me to remember offhandedly. Also, Black Lives Matter, trans rights. And also, incidentally, I do stand with the Kurds against Sir Dogan. So there you go.
Oh, so non-political. His YouTube is really, really good for anyone who wants to learn stuff. It's helped me a lot when I was trying to learn color stuff. So highly recommend checking out his YouTube for his old VODs.
Nice.
I recommend it as well. Sounds like a good YouTube channel.
All right. Well, that's going to be it for us here tonight. We were the boys. These were our guests, and we all had some bevies. And do you know what? For tonight, you guys were boys as well. I know that's a rare thing for you guys to hear, but you did it. That's going to be it from us. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure you do follow each of our guests. And we're going to be back in 4 days' time when groups end. Guests are not confirmed yet. But
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you very much for joining me. And Dagda,